Hello, everyone. This is Justin.
And this is Riley.
So today we are talking about the Spider-Man trilogy. But
The Holy Trilogy.
but
Do you
yes,
mind?
yes, the Holy Trilogy, indeed. I also would like to apologize. We meant to upload a video last week, and we did actually, but we didn't like how it turned out, so we took it off. So
Yeah, it was our Star Wars one, and I was not prepared. It was my fault.
yeah. It was a little bit my fault too. So we took it down. We're gonna retry. We're gonna do something different with Star Wars. But for now, we're talking about Spider-Man.
All
So
right. So before we start talking about Spider-Man, um, let's talk about the ranking of Spider-Man and not just the plot. So Spider-Man 1 has a 7.3 on IMDb. Spider-Man 2 has another 77.3, sorry, and Spider-Man 3 has a 6.2. Do you agree with these rankings? Yes or no, Justin?
Spider-Man 1, I would give it 8. Spider-Man 2 gets a 10. If I could, I'd give it an 11. Not gonna lie. And Spider-Man 3 is like a 7 for me.
Yeah. Spider-Man 1 for me would have to be I think it's 7.9, and then Spider-Man 2 definitely an 8.9, and Spider-Man 3 being a 7.2.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that. You see, Spider-Man 2 in my brain is just like, and I know it's everyone's favorite, but it's a masterpiece. Like it's a pure masterpiece. And when you watch these movies, it's kind of different than other film adaptations of Spider-Man because you get the feeling that this was like one man's like passion project. Like Sam Raimi really loved the character of Spider-Man. Like I was watching the behind the scenes features for Spider-Man 1 and they talked about how Sam Raimi had a painting of Spider-Man on his childhood bedroom when he was a kid. Like
Dang.
he loved Spider-Man that much. And so it was really important to him that he did the character justice and I think he did a fantastic job.
Yes, and I do agree, but in Spider-Man 3, I think that he went along with what the fans wanted more than what he knew what was right. And I think that's where he messed up with Spider-Man 3 whenever it came to masterpiecing the character.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And a lot of it had to do a lot with the studio, actually. I know Sony Pictures, I believe, was demanding, because of fan demand, that they put Venom in there, but Sam Raimi didn't want to put Venom in the movie. He really
Yeah,
wanted.
no, yeah. Go on, sorry.
He really wanted to just do Sandman and Harry Osborn as the new Green Goblin, but he caved in. He caved in to the demands of the fans and of the studio, and he ended up putting Spider-Man in there anyway. So I mean Venom in there anyway. Sorry, but
Do you think that they were right to have three villains, or should they have? Would you have preferred one villain in Spider-Man 3, 2, or 3?
you
How many
see,
villains?
okay, I'm kind of go back and forth with that because part of me is like storytelling wise, it might have been better if he would have just focused on Harry Osborn as the main villain because it would have made the story feel more focused. But at the same time, we already kind of got Green Goblin and Spider-Man 1, and I feel like introducing a new villain of some sort is also kind of nice. So maybe I would have been fine with them just having Sandman and Harry Osborn and just
Yeah,
cut out Venom.
I totally agree, but I'm not on track with Harry Osborn being a part of the Green Goblin just for the fact that his butler waited till the third movie to tell him that his father killed himself.
Well, okay. That I agree with. That I think was really poorly handled.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I feel like the first two movies were really building up to the idea of Harry Osborn turning bad. Like the first movie, he becomes hell-bent on avenging his father's death and finding Spider-Man, and then in Spider-Man 2, he spends almost the entire movie looking for him, pretty much until the very end when he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. And then he finds the suit, and they start hinting at the idea, like, oh yeah, he's gonna become the new Green Goblin. So that was the culmination of things that had been building up from the previous two movies. So I don't think there's really a way to write that out, if that makes sense. Like they had to have to pay that off somehow. And
Yeah, but I mean, they should have planned that earlier.
yeah, they should have planned it out. I'm like they should have written it better. Wait,
No,
what?
or just completely take out the butler saying that and find a different way for him to join Peter's side.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you know what? Why I think would have been more interesting is what if he doesn't turn back to the good side at the end? Like what if he ends up fighting Peter
Oh yeah,
Parker? Like
definitely.
what if he just ends up fighting Spider-Man all the way to the end of the movie? And it's maybe at the very last minute that Peter is able to get it through his head, but it's like too late, and he's already so down that he can't really be convinced anymore.
So many tricky plots to making these movies, and that's why I'm glad that Sam Raimi did it, even though it was poorly constructed in Spider-Man 3 at some points.
Yeah, and Spider-Man 3, there's still a lot of things about it that I do like. Like
I love the movie. I know it's poorly constructed, but I do love the movie.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do have to say something that I saw all three of these movies in theaters when I was young. Like I remember my dad taking me to see the first Spider-Man back in 2002. I was 5 years old at the time, and I mean, just imagine like being a 5-year-old boy and that was your first exposure to the Spider-Man character. Like, just imagine like the kind of effect that would have on a little
Yeah.
kid. You know?
Spider-Man 1 was definitely my first exposure to the character. Even though I didn't watch it in theaters, it was still amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't really remember my Spider-Man 2 experience in the theater. Like I remember going to see it, but at the time, since I was younger, I think I liked Spider-Man 1 a little better, but as I've gotten older, I've grown to like Spider-Man 2 more, if that makes sense.
Oh, I agree. As a kid, I liked Spider-Man 1 way more, but then I've grown into Spider-Man 2.
But I do vividly remember seeing Spider-Man 3 in the theater because I was super excited for Spider-Man 3. Like I remember I was 10 whenever I went to see that, 9 or 10 years old. And I remember my mom taking me to see it. And the part whenever this just tells you like how into the character I was at the time. I remember whenever Spider-Man whenever he got in the black suit and he started doing like all the kind of not so good things, like whenever he hit MJ, it actually like genuinely unsettled me as a kid. Like I remember thinking like, gee, I don't like seeing Spider-Man acting like this. Like I'm so used to him being such like a good-natured person, and it was just kind of uh just unnerving to me at that point in
Yeah, it
time.
was. Yeah.
But as I've gone older, it's actually pretty silly to me now. Like whenever he like walks out of the bar and he starts dancing, and
Yeah. No, I agree. It doesn't hit like it did as a child.
yeah, yeah, and now people make fun of it, and I do think that Sam Raimi didn't do a very good job handling it. He made it a joke instead of handling it seriously like he should have been.
I think it was the pressure on him. I'm I I don't think it's fully his fault. I think it's the pressure that Sony had on him.
Yeah. I love how we've spent like almost 80% of this video talking about Spider-Man 3, but it's just kind of funny. It's kind of funny to me.
Um, something I have is Spider-Man 1. You know how Norman Osborn is captured by his conscious, right? After he got the gas in him, like in the mirror scenes, whenever he was talking to himself, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was two different people. Okay, so that's not supernatural, right? Not at all.
No, no.
No, it's not. But in Spider-Man 3, Harry didn't even use the gas yet, and he is captured by his father talking in the mirror. So how do we go from not being supernatural in Spider-Man 1 to being supernatural in Spider-Man 3 and acting like that is normal for the movies?
I've never thought about that angle before, but I don't know. It's interesting. I think maybe somehow maybe it was just a kind of a subtle retcon just by Sam Raimi. Like maybe he decided to kind of evolve the idea a little more as the story progressed.
I mean, I definitely like it in the plot, but stuff that doesn't make sense in these movies, I mean, I kind of notice it, and I just feel like they need to make more sense in some ways.
Well, what I always thought could have been explained a little better, even though I just called this movie a masterpiece, but in Spider-Man 2, it always confused me as to why he was losing his powers, at least as a kid. I've grown to understand it a little better as I've gotten older. Like, I think that quote that Doc Ock says, whenever he says that when you keep something as complicated as love stirred up inside, it can make you sick. I kind of wonder if that piece of dialogue was kind of dropped in there to kind of help explain why Spider-Man was losing his powers in the movie.
Okay,
Like,
so I thought he lost his or I'm sorry, I thought he lost his power because he started putting his full identity in Spider-Man instead of himself as Peter Parker. Good.
yeah, I can see where you're coming from on that. I always thought that it was a more of he he started rejecting his responsibility as Spider-Man, and so his powers started rejecting him in return. Like, I don't.
So, so you thought he was rejecting his responsibility in Spider-Man 2?
Yeah, like he didn't want to be Spider-Man anymore because he wanted to be able to live his own personal life and be with Mary Jane, and he just didn't want the mantle of being Spider-Man anymore. And
Yeah, I totally agree with that, but I don't think he knew that. I think I think that was his deep conscious telling him that. I don't think it was him himself saying that.
yeah, yeah. Fun fact, well, you probably already know this, but that whole storyline was inspired by a comic book called Spider-Man No More, and that's actually
Oh,
quoted
really?
it. That's actually quoted the movie. As Peter Parker says, "I'm Spider-Man No More." That is literally the title of the comic book, and I believe it was the 50th issue they released of the comic series. So
All right. Yeah. No, I totally didn't know that.
yeah, I just think it's kind of cool. In fact, if you back in 2004 when Spider-Man 2 came out, there was a like I kind of want to hunt it down just for novelty's sake, but there is a DVD release that came with that comic book.
Huh.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah, I'll totally check that out.
I remember seeing it at Vintage Stock one time, and I didn't. But
You cut out again.
I did.
Yeah, I can hear you now, but I couldn't hear that last sentence you said.
Oh, I said I ran into it at Vintage Stock one time, but
Every time you say "but," you cut out.
I saw it at Vintage Stock, but I didn't buy it, and I regret that. I regret it to this day. But
Yeah. Um. Okay, go on. Go on.
I lost my train of thought, so you keep going.
Do you think Doc Ock was a great role for Spider-Man 2? Did you know that he was actually supposed to be the villain in Spider-Man 1?
Really, I did not know that.
Yeah.
I think the Green Goblin did a fantastic job for Spider-Man 1.
Yeah. Especially with the actor that they chose.
Oh, William Dafoe was perfect. We had,
Yes, definitely.
but the most perfect casting in that entire trilogy.
Aunt May.
Besides that, J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
Yes. 100% perfect in all three movies. Actually, I wrote that down saying that was the only thing perfect in all three movies, and then I wrote down what else was near perfect.
Yeah, I almost said the musical score, but I always thought this music in Spider-Man 3 was kind of lacking. So
Yeah.
it feels different in tone. Have you ever noticed that? Like, you jump into Spider-Man 3 and the music feels different somehow. It
Yes.
doesn't hit the
Yes.
same. And from what I understand, they didn't get the same composer for Spider-Man 3. They got somebody else. So,
Oh, really?
yeah. Spider-Man 1 and 2, the music was composed by Danny Elfman. And I believe the guy they got for Spider-Man 3, I believe his name was Christopher Young, I believe. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting here.
Yeah. No, the music's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that
Uh,
the theme composed for the trilogy, I think, is like the definitive Spider-Man theme. So
yeah.
I love how like
Um,
the opening part of the theme literally maybe makes you think of Spider-Man crawling. Like you know what I'm talking about?
yes. No, yes. The yeah, I can't even explain it out loud, but yes, I know what you mean. It's in my head.
Yeah, yeah. I always loved that about the main theme.
Did that music play whenever he was crawling up the wall in Spider-Man 1 for the first time? I can't remember if it did.
No, no, that was like some weird like brass instrument sound. It was like burr, 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 or something like that.
Oh, do. I got it. Got it.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I totally know what you're talking about, and I agree. The intros to those movies were great too. It basically sums up the past few movies.
I thought Spider-Man 2 did it the best because it had those beautiful paintings, which
Yes.
which were actually designed by an actual comic book artist. Believe it or not,
Oh,
I forgot the artist's name, but they actually got a comic book artist to draw those. So
yeah, those are great, especially the ones with Norman Osborn.
yeah. Uh, did you know that? Okay, I'm going to segue into something really interesting. The whole idea of Spider-Man having organic web shooters instead of mechanical ones, that came from James Cameron's Spider-Man that never came to light.
Oh, really?
Yeah, James Cameron in the 90s was going to direct a Spider-Man movie and was supposed to have Leonardo DiCaprio as, or that's who they were wanting to bring in as Spider-Man for that.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah. What?
that's where the idea of the organic web shooters came from, apparently. But apparently
Yeah. Sorry.
that was supposed
James.
to have. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, go on first.
I was gonna say that the villains in that movie was apparently supposed to be Shocker and Sandman.
That would have been nice, but I'm glad Raimi got it. James Cameron basically got out of that movie and ended up making the Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio instead. So he basically brought his possible Spider-Man choice for those movies, and just brought him to a whole different movie.
That's funny. Well, you know, James Cameron's Spider-Man would have been horrible if you actually like read some of the ideas they made for it.
Yeah.
Get this. I was reading off of the Spider-Man films wiki. The movie was apparently supposed to have, and I'm not kidding. It was supposed to have a sex scene between Spider-Man and Mary Jane on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh. Oh my. Um.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, aren't you glad we didn't get that Spider-Man now?
Yeah.
uh, there's a lot of other like really strange things in that version. Like Electro was named Carlton Strand instead of Max Dillon, and
Hmm.
Sandman was simply named Boyd instead of Flint Marco. This version of Spider-Man would have been terrible. I'm so glad we didn't get it.
Yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Um. Speaking of villains, Robert De Niro. I think I said that wrong. Did I say that wrong?
De Niro, I think is how you say it.
De Niro
Yeah, De Niro. There you
was
go.
actually one of the choices for Doc Ock, and Liam Neeson and Nicolas Cage was a choice for the Green Goblin.
Really?
Yeah. So, do you think any of them would have been able to deliver, or no?
Robert De Niro might have been a good might have been a good Doc Ock,
I disagree.
but I'm so glad we got Alfred Molina. I think
Yes,
he did a far better job.
he made the standards of Doc Ock high. I don't think Robert could have done any better or even close, even though he is a perfect actor almost.
So here's something interesting that almost happened. Tobey Maguire was almost replaced in Spider-Man 2.
Yes, because of the injury from a great movie called Seabiscuit.
Yeah. And they were originally going to bring in the actor that played as Mysterio in Far From Home. What was his name?
Yeah, his first name's Jake. I don't know his last
Jake
name.
Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was right before they started making the movie. Sony just wanted the movie to pop right out.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that didn't happen, though. I can't
Yeah,
imagine anybody else
I
doing
agree.
it.
Yeah.
Uh, have you heard about all that went down for Spider-Man 4 before it got canceled?
No, I have not actually.
So this is information that I've just accumulated over time. But apparently, the part of what happened is Sony wanted a movie out by 2012. They needed a movie out by 2012 because if they didn't, they would have lost the rights to Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
And apparently, that was the whole reason they rebooted Spider-Man was because they needed a movie out as soon as possible, and they just decided to reboot the series because Sam Raimi wasn't delivering on what he was trying to do. Like he had a script, he had even had storyboards for this thing, and Sam Raimi said that it just wasn't living up to what he wanted, and he didn't want to deliver something that wasn't good. So
Yeah.
he felt it in his
Well,
heart
it's
that
not
it
like we got any better with Andrew Garfield.
yeah, and so he kind of felt it in his heart that it was time to let go. And he moved on. And I believe I remember even hearing rumors that a lot of the cast members just straight up quit or something like that. Which
Wow.
I don't know if that part's true. I just remember reading about it way back in the day or something like that. And apparently Kirsten Dunst was like one of the first people that decided to leave. So
Dang. It would have been weird without her doing the exact same thing, all three movies getting captured towards the end, you know?
yeah. I mean, you got to have her in there just for that. I mean,
What do you think about that? I mean, I think it seems a bit repetitive, and in my opinion, that's one of the annoying things about all three movies. Whenever they started doing it on all three movies.
well, all three movies are extremely formulaic. It's almost like he made the same movie 3 times.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
all three of them feature a villain that was the result of a science experiment gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All three movies, like you said, have Mary Jane get captured at the end, and then Spider-Man has to rescue her. The only thing that formulaic-wise that changed is Spider-Man 1 and 2 have a Spider-Man swinging at the end of the movie, and Spider-Man 3 ends with the dance between Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Or Peter and Mary Jane, but
Ah, got it. Yeah.
I kind of wish that, I love that ending, but at the same time, part of me's like, man, it would have been cool to get a final swing in Spider-Man 3 also. But
Yeah.
I understand. So here's the real question. Which movie had the best final swings? The end of Spider-Man 1 or the end of Spider-Man 2? I think Spider-Man 1.
Yeah. Yeah. I fully agree.
What's really cool about that sequence is it was the first time they ever used what they called the spider cam, and it was used all through Spider-Man 2 and I believe 3. But the spider cam was essentially this camera that they had on a rig, and they literally just did background shots of New York City, and they used those as background plates for whenever they composited the CGI Spider-Man into it.
Wow.
So when Spider-Man is like swinging through the city, those are real aerial shots of New York City or whatever city they were filming in. Because from what I understand, those movies aren't 100% filmed in New York. I believe some shots are from like Chicago and stuff like that.
I I heard something that the Twin Towers was actually in the movie, but they had to take it out because they didn't want it in after 9/11.
Yeah, it's even in the poster.
Yeah.
But I believe that poster is worth a lot of money nowadays. I think it's like up over like thousands of dollars if you want to get it. But if you look closely in Spider-Man 1 the movie though, there's a close-up shot of Spider-Man like doing the Spider-Man web shooting thing, and he like jumps off. But if you look at his eye, you can still see the Twin Towers there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the reflection. I wish I could show it. Maybe I'll pull it up for everyone else to see in the video. But
All right. Yeah. I want to see that too.
yeah. But
Um, just a random question on the side note. Sam Raimi has The Evil Dead and Spider-Man. Which one's better? Which one did he deliver to a higher point?
Ooh, oh, I love all of them the same. So what's interesting about both of those trilogies? We need to talk about Evil Dead someday. Just do a dedicated
Yeah, no,
video to
no, yeah,
that.
we will in the next few months.
But they each have a similar situation where the first two movies are great and the third movie's not as good, in my opinion.
Yes, no, definitely.
If I had to choose, though, if I was sick for 3 days and I had to pick a set of movies to watch, I think I would still pick Spider-Man, though.
Yeah, no, Spider-Man is a way bigger part of my life. I totally would too.
But I still love Evil Dead, especially Evil Dead 2. Oh my god, Evil.
Yeah, thanks for getting me on that this year.
Oh, you're welcome. This was my first time watching it this year too. So,
Oh, I did not know that.
yeah, yeah. I've heard about them. I've heard about them so many times. I never took the time to watch it. And literally that night that I texted you, say, hey, you should watch Evil Dead. That was the night I watched all three of them. I watched all three of them that night.
Okay, I thought you saw it in the past.
No, I watched all three of them that night because I was like, I couldn't go to sleep, and I remember I wanted to start something new, and I was like, I'll start Evil Dead. And I watched the first movie, liked it a lot. Started Evil Dead 2, absolutely loved it. Watched the third movie, didn't like it as much, but it was still a good trilogy. So, and I texted you about it, and I was like, Riley,
Those
you
movies
need
are
to
really
watch.
good.
Yeah, yeah. They're so zany. Like they're so like I don't know how to describe it. They're so Sam Raimi. Like it's hard to explain.
Bruce Campbell did great in those movies too, and I love his cameos in the three Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, yeah. In the first movie, he's the wrestling guy, the announcing guy, and
Yes,
in Spider-Man 2, he's the guy waiting in front of the play. Whenever he's Peter Parker.
Spider-Man 3, he's the yeah, the whenever he didn't let Peter Parker in.
Yeah,
And then Spider-Man 3, of course, is him at the restaurant, which, in my opinion, that one's my favorite. What about you? What do you think your favorite is?
ooh, my favorite. Yeah, Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3
Yeah,
has the best Bruce Campbell cameo for sure. So
I
which
really, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say that I really loved his part in Spider-Man 3, but the scene was kind of iffy with Mary Jane, wanting all the tension.
Yeah, yeah. My question was going to be which movie of the three movies do you think had the best Stan Lee cameo? Spider-Man 3. I'm going to say Spider-Man 3 as well for that.
I really liked his Spider-Man 1 cameo.
Well, I like the quote he says in Spider-Man 3 when he's like,
Oh, yes.
I guess one man can make a difference.
Yes, yeah, no, you know what? Yeah, Spider-Man 3 is my favorite just because that. I can play that whole entire scene in my head, and I hear the exact way that he said it too.
Yeah. Though Spider-Man 1, I'm trying to remember. Spider-Man 1 was him pulling some person out of the way from
Some
debris.
girl, yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
And then Spider-Man 2, what was the cameo in Spider-Man 2? Wasn't it wasn't it something similar? Wasn't it like
Oh, was it during the train scene?
no,
Oh no! It was whenever Aunt May was on the side of the building.
oh yeah, he did literally the same thing. He pulled somebody out of the way of debris.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Man, he plays the savior in all three of those movies.
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you like Rosemary Harris's acting as Aunt May?
Oh, I think she's the perfect Aunt May. We have not seen a better Aunt May.
Definitely.
And
And we never will.
though, and I also hot take here. I think that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man has the best Uncle Ben as well.
Oh, definitely. Um, did you like Andrew Garfield's version? Or
He,
sorry, whenever he played a Spider-Man, did you like his Uncle Ben?
it was fine. We'll talk about those movies some other time, I think. But
Yeah. But definitely Spider-Man 1 through 3 had the perfect Uncle Ben.
it was so perfect that if you watch Into the Spider-Verse, they used audio from Spider-Man 1's Uncle Ben. Whenever they said, with great power comes great responsibility," that was his Uncle Ben. Which I forget the actor's name. It was Cliff Robertson, right, or something like that.
I have no idea.
Here, I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Mm. You know the lunchroom scene in Spider-Man 1?
Yeah.
How in the world did no one see the web in the lunchroom scene?
Well, if people did see the web, I think it was a matter of maybe you just have to take some suspension of disbelief and just be like, oh, whatever. Maybe they brushed it off or something. There's a
I
lot
guess
of
we have to brush off a lot of things in the movies.
well, yeah, it does kind of raise some eyebrows because like later when he becomes Spider-Man, did none of those students ever go, "Hey, you remember that one guy in high school?" you know?
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Go on.
I don't remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, Cliff Robertson. That was his name. I was making sure I had it right.
And in that lunch scene, also, it took 156 takes to catch MJ's whole lunch table or whole lunch on the tray. You know that scene?
Yeah, I heard about that. That's insane.
And then, yeah, I thought it was glue. I thought it was fake.
I thought they just CGI'd it. I didn't even think they did it for real, but apparently did. The whole thing. Like it's crazy.
I knew it wasn't CGI. I just thought there was like sticky stuff on it. I mean, the stuff didn't even move. I didn't know that they did it for real.
Yeah, that's crazy. Insane. There's a lot of like practical effects in camera stuff in that movie. Like Sam Raimi tried to use as little CGI as possible. Like yeah, there are parts where you definitely they had to use CGI when Spider-Man's like swinging through the city. They can't do that, but
Uh
like
huh.
they did as much stunt work as
The
possible.
mannequin.
Yeah, as possible. Yeah, that shot whenever
I
Spider-Man is
can't get it
swinging.
out of my head.
Yeah, when he's swinging with Mary Jane, that's just a mannequin. That's hilarious. But
um. Yeah.
the CGI in Spider-Man 1 does not look that great.
But Spider-Man 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely improves in Spider-Man 2 and 3. But Spider-Man 1 CGI, whew.
Yeah, I
There's
still
some
like the movie though.
Oh, me too. Me too. I still love it. But yeah, that's a rough spot for me. Especially whenever he's leaping from building to building at the beginning and you got the CGI Peter Parker jumping around.
That I think they shot the same shot twice in that too.
Yeah. Yeah, they did, I think. You know what's something interesting? If you
What?
watch the trailer for Spider-Man 1, do you remember that shot whenever Spider-Man's in the wrestling suit and he like loops around that pole and jumps off of it?
Yes. Yes.
In the trailer, he's not in the wrestling suit. He's in the regular Spider-Man suit. I don't,
Really?
yeah, I don't know if that was I don't know if that was for marketing reasons or if maybe Sam Raimi originally didn't plan for the wrestling suit. Maybe it was like a I have a feeling it was a marketing thing though.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that they just wanted more shots of Spider-Man, so they re-rendered the shot with the regular suit to put it in the trailer. But
Yeah. There's a lot of marketing things they did in Spider-Man 1. They also had a trailer with robbers robbing the Twin Towers, and Spider-Man went and stopped them. It was like a little clip into Spider-Man 1 as a take, like a first take.
yeah, I heard about that. But
It was very weird.
yeah, it was. Yeah. I believe the trailer got kicked from theaters after 9/11 happened. So
Yeah. Yep.
uh
Um.
favorite moment from all three movies, what would you say?
Um. Spider-Man 1. I kind of like whenever he's laying Norman Osborn on the bed, whenever he's not alive anymore, and Harry walks in. Like with great power comes great responsibility. I like that one too. I like whenever Peter's transforming, whenever he comes downstairs along the walls and Uncle Ben says something. I like all the Uncle Ben parts. I like all the Aunt May parts. In Spider-Man 2, I like whenever Aunt May. No. Was that Spider-Man 2 or 3? Whenever she moves out.
Spider-Man 2, she's
2.
packing.
Powers. Yeah. Yeah, I love that scene. I didn't really like the wedding scene in that movie. Or no, yeah, in that movie.
Yeah.
Um, Another scene I liked, the train scene, of course. Whenever Harry finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. My point here is that I don't have a favorite. I like a lot about the movies. And then in Spider-Man 3, yeah, I like whenever Harry turns around with that weird smile on his face to look at Peter. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
yeah, yeah. What about
Okay,
you?
my favorite moment in Spider-Man 1, and it's just because of how
Yours is more structured than mine.
it's simply because of how iconic it is. It's the upside down kiss.
Oh, yes, yes. Yes, definitely.
It's such a great scene, and that's not derived from any of the comics. From what I understand, that was wholly a Sam Raimi scene. Like that's just so cool.
Yes. That was
Uh,
a great scene.
Spider-Man 2, it's the train fight. It's so perfect. It's such a
Yeah,
great action sequence.
that's iconic too.
And I feel like it's the scene that makes the most out of Spider-Man's abilities. Like it shows cinematically
Yeah.
like just how great of an action scene he can be in.
The way that they put that scene together with the CGI and all that was perfect.
Yeah, it's a good blend of practical and CGI effects. So, like
Yeah. Mhm.
they did a lot of background shots of an actual train and stuff like that, and combined it with shots on set of a stuntman Spider-Man and a stuntman Doc Ock, and then they combined some CGI elements and stuff, and just kind of compiled all three of those kind of stuff together to create the scene. Like it's a great marvel to look at. Spider-Man 2, I believe, is the only one of the three that won Best Visual Effects. Fun fact. Because Spider-Man 1 lost to Lord of the Rings, and Spider-Man 3 lost to Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh wow. I can see how Pirates of the Caribbean beat Spider-Man 3, but I mean, I kind of think Spider-Man 1, the visuals are better than Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, yeah.
But most people will disagree with me on that, and I don't care if you disagree with me on that. I totally agree.
My favorite scene in Spider-Man 3. Oh, that's a tough. Oh, just because of how beautiful it is. I love whenever that moment after Sandman has gotten his powers, and he emerges out of the sand, and he's like full body Sandman. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
And the music.
Oh, it's such a beautiful moment, and the CGI looks fantastic in that scene. It
Mhm.
looks amazing.
You know what I've never understood about Spider-Man 3?
What?
When MJ and Peter were on the bridge and MJ was breaking up with Peter Parker, why didn't MJ tell Peter Parker that Harry was on the other side of the river and that he was holding her hostage just an hour ago?
I have no clue.
I mean, he's freaking Spider-Man. Why didn't she tell him? Is she stupid?
You see, what I've always wondered is why does she hold such a grudge about Peter missing the play? Like, I understand being upset about it for a little while, but takes it way out of proportion, in my opinion. Like
Yeah,
to
I don't really. I don't like her. I wouldn't date someone like her at all.
like the fact that she's like, oh yeah, he's been my longtime friend, but he's not invited to my wedding because he missed my play.
Yeah.
That's I
Did
hate.
you like her character,
I
or
thought.
could they have done it better?
See, I liked her in Spider-Man 1,
Yeah, no, definitely. Kirsten Dunst did great acting in all three movies, but
but she did get annoying in Spider-Man 2 and in Spider-Man
yeah,
3. So,
jealousy and yeah, and then she went off with Harry in Spider-Man 3.
yeah. Yeah. Well, she's kind of a cheater. Like she cheated on Harry in Spider-Man 1
Yeah.
and kissed Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And then she cheats on Spider-Man with Harry in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, but Also, okay, a scene from Spider-Man 3 that I always thought was super cringy was whenever she comes over to Harry's house and they start doing the twist.
Yes, and
I,
well,
I
the
fucking
omelet.
I fucking hate that scene. I don't know why. It's the
Yeah,
cringiest thing ever. But
then they kiss, and she walks out,
yeah, yeah,
and that's whenever he turns back into the guy who wants to kill Spider-Man.
that kiss.
Yeah,
Strawberries. I love that moment. I protected you in high school, and now I'm gonna kick your little ass. Ooh.
yeah, that was great. I mean, Peter just destroyed him.
Dude, I actually think Tobey Maguire has really good comedic timing. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if he's been in one, but I would love to see him in a comedy. Not gonna lie.
I'm pretty sure he has been in one. I saw a lot of his movies this year. Um, but anyhow, do you like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man or Peter Parker better?
I think he's definitely better at portraying Peter Parker, but I think he still does good as Spider-Man. People give him too much flack for not doing enough, being quippy enough. But the quips that he does have are still pretty funny. Like when he's like, "That's a cute outfit. Did your husband make it for you?" I love that.
Yeah,
That's hilarious. Or when Doc Ock's like, "You're getting on my nerves. I have a knack for that. Not anymore." Or here's your change. Like, there's some good quips in there here and there, but
yeah. Um, is he the best Peter Parker of all time, or the best Spider-Man of all time, or both?
for me both. For me
Yes,
both.
I agree.
Like,
A lot of people would say that he sucks at Peter Parker. He does not. His Peter Parker is great. I know that they may have messed him up in Spider-Man 3, but Tobey Maguire's acting as Peter Parker is amazing if they didn't mess up the part.
yeah, yeah. Well, if we're comparing all the interpretations, for me, it's Toby, Tom, Andrew.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, Tom deserves a high-notch spot too, up there with Tobey Maguire.
My only problem with Tom Holland's Spider-Man is I feel like everything's kind of handed to him on a silver platter, kind of.
Yes,
Like, it's like, oh, here's your suit. It's really high tech.
his
Uh,
life seems to go perfect, while Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man's life has something bad happen to him. Literally every 5 minutes of every single movie.
especially Spider-Man 2. Did you know that scene
Yeah.
in the library whenever he's constantly getting hit in the head when he's trying to pick up his stuff? One of the people that hits him is Sam Raimi.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he walked
I
in
don't know
frame.
that.
Yeah, he walks in frame and he hits Spider-Man on accident. I love it so much. I think is one of the greatest tonal shifts ever.
What?
Whenever he gives up being Spider-Man and he throws his suit in the trash can, and it's super sad and dramatic. And then it just switches to the raindrops are falling in my head sequence.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's so perfect.
You know what else is perfect?
What?
J.K. Simmons.
Oh yeah. That is the most perfect on-screen portrayal of a comic book character I think I've ever witnessed.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they chose him.
And I'm glad they brought him back in the MCU for Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Yes, I'm really excited for that. I hope that they don't screw it up.
Yeah, I think the third Tom Holland Spider-Man has a lot of potential to really make things better. Because my problem, again, that I said with with that Spider-Man is I feel like he doesn't struggle enough. Like there's not enough. Like everything's
He
kind
needs
of
to get hit every 5 minutes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Like just beat him into the ground, like literally. But
Tobey Maguire played in Pleasantville, which is a comedy. But I have seen that movie this year, and he doesn't play as the funny guy. He's actually the most serious guy in the movie. While everyone else is being funny, he's not. So it doesn't really count, in my opinion.
yeah, I've heard Pleasantville is a really good movie. I have not
Oh man,
seen
it
it.
is great. But Tobey Maguire's the smartest guy in the movie, so he doesn't really make it seem like a comedy from his part of view.
You know what I always found humorous about Tobey's Spider-Man?
Whenever he turns bad.
Well, that. But whenever he gets bit by the spider, and he wakes up, and suddenly he has a six pack, and he doesn't need his glasses anymore. He just kind
Oh,
of, he
I
just
knew
kind of,
that spider.
he just kind of accepts it and moves on. Like he's
Yeah.
he's not freaking out or anything. He's just like, oh, I have a six pack now. Okay. Like he's just perfectly fine with it. He's not freaking out at all. I just think it's funny. Like if that happened to me, I'd be losing my shit, man. I'd be like, what is going on? But
yeah, you know what else is funny about how Tobey Maguire planned to be Spider-Man?
what?
He studied tons of spiders and their movements for months just so that he could try to turn into a spider.
That's awesome. Have you
Yeah.
have you seen his audition tape for Spider-Man?
Oh, I have not.
It's in the Spider-Man 1 DVD, and apparently he had to prove that he could do stunts for the movie. Like he had to prove
Yeah.
that he had the physicality for it. And so he literally filmed a fight scene. And it's actually pretty sick.
Wow. I'm gonna check that on YouTube then.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. If you have your DVD still, it should be in the bonus features
Yeah, I
somewhere.
do.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. He filmed it like a kung fu movie almost. Like it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you think they initiated the all three movie endings the way they should have?
Like what do you mean? Like what are you trying to say?
Like, did all three movies had the ending that you wanted?
Yes. Yeah, like Spider-Man 1's ending is perfect. Like whenever he cuz like I feel like he's doing the ultimate heroic sacrifice at the end of Spider-Man 1 where like he wants to have a personal life and he wants to be with Mary Jane, but he accepts that he has to be a superhero, that he has to be Spider-Man and live up to the responsibility that his Uncle Ben would want him to do. And
Yeah.
so he tells her that we can only be friends. And then he walks away and fully taking on the responsibility of being Spider-Man. So I think that ending is perfect, especially whenever Mary Jane recognizes the kiss, which kind of sets things in motion in
Mhm.
Spider-Man 2 a little bit.
Yeah.
The ending of Spider-Man 2 is super satisfying. It's so
It is.
satisfying
And then
because
Spider-Man 3 starts.
yeah, yeah. Well, like, what's satisfying about Spider-Man 2's ending is, you know, he's constantly being run into the ground, constantly just bad things happening to him, and then finally something amazing happens to him, and you're just so happy to see it happen to him, you know? Like he finally gets to be with the girl that he loves.
Yeah, I agree. I even like the ending of Spider-Man 3. They should have done the movie a lot better, but I mean, the ending was a fine way to end the trilogy, even
Well,
though it wasn't supposed to be the end.
yeah, well, you know, a lot of people, like I brought up earlier how it didn't have a final swing at the end. But, you know, I think that might have been a very intentional decision by Sam Raimi because if you really think about it, at its heart, this trilogy was about Peter and MJ. So
Yeah,
to cap it on Peter and MJ at the very end, I think is
yeah, but I
perfect.
hate MJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the ending whenever he was dancing at the end with MJ.
Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. It's a good way to close the trilogy, and I kind of like that it's kind of bittersweet because you don't fully know if they ever really decided to go back together. You know that they never explicitly say it, but
Yes, definitely.
but it's kind of implied. Like yeah, you can just imagine they probably did get back together after that and stuff. You know,
Which villain was the had the most impact in Spider-Man 3?
Harry. I think Harry,
Harry?
because
Yeah, yeah.
he's the character that you know he had an arc in all three movies, and whenever he dies at the end, it is pretty emotional. Like I will say it.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
I still think Doc Ock was the best villain they had in the whole trilogy, though.
Oh, no, 100%. I'm sure tons of people can agree on that. I think the most iconic character in those three movies was the Green Goblin, but the the best villain was definitely Doc Ock.
Yeah. Well, what's great about him is he was a sympathetic villain. You could actually understand his motives and actually you kind of feel sorry for him because he lost his wife and he only wanted to just do something great for society. He built this experiment and it went wrong, and then his inhibitor chip broke, and then he ended up going mad. And it's just like, there's a good guy in there,
Yeah,
but he's just being corrupt by these tentacles, and it's kind of sad to see, honestly, because you want to him to go
it's a
back.
great plot though.
Yeah, yeah. And I think they did a great job setting up a kind of mutual friendship between Peter and Dog Ock before they end up fighting each other.
Yeah. Did Did you know that Spider-Man 3 never actually had Kirsten Dunst scream? They were all recorded from Spider-Man 2.
That's hilarious. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I mean that just blows my mind that they had to use her screams from Spider-Man 2 for Spider-Man 3.
Did-
And that Spider-Man 3 was the most expensive movie in 2007.
It was the most expensive movie of all time for a little while, I think.
Yeah.
Did you know that? What was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. Sorry for wasting your time, guys.
Um was Spider-Man right to kiss Gwen in Spider-Man 3?
I can see it both ways. I do think that since he was already taken, maybe it was the wrong move to make. But at the same time, Spider-Man was just kind of caught up in the moment, and he was trying to do something that was crowd pleasing.
Yeah. He wanted it for the reputation of the people, not of not of um Peter Parker.
Yeah, he didn't have feelings for her. He just did it because it was a publicity stunt, really, more than anything.
Yeah. While MJ over here not doing it for publicity stunts, kissed Harry, his best friend.
Yeah, yeah. Well, but at the same time, with MJ, that was their kiss in Spider-Man 1.
No,
that
yeah.
that was their
Oh,
first that was their first kiss, and
yeah. Once you say that, he totally shouldn't have done it. You're right.
that was special to her. So I can kind of see where she's coming from. I think both are kind of in the wrong a little bit.
I agree totally. And then he hits her.
Yeah, that was the scene that really unsettled me when I was a kid. That was the scene I remember looking at my mom and being like, "I don't want to watch this anymore." I'm serious. I
That's
said that to her.
still the most unsettling scene in the whole movie.
The whole movie?
I think it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I kid you not. I remember turning over to my mom and saying, "I don't want to watch this anymore. I want to go home." And mom was like, "No, we're gonna stay to the end." And then I ended up loving it by the end of the movie. Fun fact.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I actually went through that. I was that disturbed by seeing Spider-Man being a bad person as a kid.
Yeah. What was the biggest joke in Spider-Man 3?
The biggest joke? Oh, probably the club dance scene. I hate it so much. It's so cringy. It's like, especially whenever he that close up when he's like, "Now dig on this." Oh my gosh, it gets me every time. But
I think Brock is the worst thing about Spider-Man 3.
he is kind of annoying. I can see where you're coming from on that.
I absolutely hate him. It's so stupid.
I love how Spider-Man tells him, "You want justice, get religion." Is that what he said? Or I forgot what the exact quote. And then
If you want saving, get religion. Is that what it is?
something like that. And then, like, he actually goes to a church and asks Jesus to kill Spider-Man. It's like, you're taking his quote way too literally, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I just didn't like him. I like the actor though, not in the movie, but in other movies. I've seen a few of his other movies this year, and he's a really great actor.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
wait, is he in Interstellar?
and what?
I think he's in Interstellar.
Topher Grace? I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't remember. I just remember him from that '70s show.
Hold on one second. He is. He's in
Really?
Interstellar. Yes,
Really?
I knew
Okay.
it. His acting in that movie is perfect.
Yeah, and it's been a while since I've seen that movie, so I need to rewatch it sometime.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How did? Sorry, go on.
I completely forgot he was in that movie. That's all I was gonna say.
How did Spider-Man 1 influence Marvel and where it's at today?
Well, okay, so X-Men was really the movie that kicked off the modern Spider superhero
Do you like
genre.
X-Men?
It's fine. It's a good movie.
Yep.
But Spider-Man, I believe, is what really kind of solidified it. Like, without Spider-Man 1, there is no MCU. Like, it brought superhero movies into the consciousness of everybody. It brought it into the limelight. Like, after Spider-Man 1 came out, that was followed by a bunch of other superhero movies that eventually culminated in the establishment of the MCU.
Yes, I agree.
And I also think they might have served as kind of a template for how to do superhero movies well, because in early 2000s the popular thing to do was to make superheroes dark and brooding and serious, and then
Oh,
here was Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man being all cheesy and fun.
Daredevil.
Yeah, yeah,
Daredevil is an example of that.
yeah. So, and I feel like the MCU kind of went for the Sam Raimi approach of just being lighthearted and fun because
Um, yeah.
what are we gonna say?
Go on.
I was gonna
Nothing.
say because I think that works better for superhero movies because the comic books, there's an inherent silly nature to them. So I think that's something that I think DC is finally starting to understand, but had.
Yeah. But when you overdo it, it kind of makes it look like crap.
Yeah, yeah,
If you do it, if you overdo it, if you do it just the right amount, it's perfect.
yeah. Spider-Man 3 borderline took it too far, but
Oh man.
But you can always go too far the other way too, because I feel like Man of Steel, for instance, just does not work. Like it's supposed to be all serious and stuff, but it does not work for me. I did not like Man of Steel.
I like the Dark Knight seriousness though.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Well, Christopher Nolan managed to still balance in some good humor in there too a
Of
little
course he
bit.
did. He's Nolan.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder what would happen if he directed a single Spider-Man series or trilogy. I meant, but whatever. I'm not even gonna talk about that because that's never gonna happen.
Well, this may sound ambitious, but in my mind, Christopher Nolan is the modern day Kubrick.
Yeah, no, definitely. Nolan is one of the best, if not the best, film director right now.
Yeah, he's definitely high up there. I mean, The Dark Knight, I think, is his masterpiece, but at the same time, he's made so many other great movies.
All of his other movies are great. There's not one bad one.
Yeah, yeah, I loved Inception. I think we need to save Christopher Nolan for a different video, though, like a different topic.
Yeah.
That'll be. I think that's gonna be our next Let's Talk Directors video. So
Yes. And I've seen all of his movies, so I'm set. Where does or no, actually before I ask you that, what would you have done if you were in the situation that Peter was in whenever he let the robber get away?
well,
I would have let him get away.
yeah, I think I would have too.
Yeah. I mean, he got cheated out of $2,000 or something.
What do you? Some people have a problem with this. What do you think of the fact that Spider-Man actually had the intent to kill him in Spider-Man 1? Like, think about it.
Huh.
He totally went into that with the intent to kill.
Yeah, no, it definitely seemed like that.
And I love
But he
how
didn't.
yeah. Well, I love how in Spider-Man 3 they show him trying to rationalize it. Like he said,
Yeah,
He goes, oh, he tripped and he fell out the window. You know, he tried to rationalize it, even though I think in his mind he knows he was trying to kill him.
yeah.
It's just
And
kind of
then yeah. And then he tried to kill Sandman in Spider-Man 3 and he was bragging about it.
well, that was whenever he was crouched by the suit. That wasn't,
Yeah. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, you're right.
but yeah, no, Spider-Man 1, I think he was just so caught up in his anger of Uncle Ben dying that
Yeah.
he just wanted revenge. And
Did you did you like the way Uncle Ben died?
oh, I thought it was handled excellently.
Yes.
Whenever he dies in Spider-Man 1, it's actually genuinely heartbreaking. Like I actually still choke up a little bit whenever I see
Yeah.
it. I
I
think
can see it in my head right now from how many times I've seen it.
I think that a lot of it has to do with Cliff Robertson's performance, though. He did such a great job in that scene.
Yes, he did.
You know, everyone makes fun of Tobey Maguire's crybaby face, but let's face it, dude. If you
Really real.
yeah, I mean, face it, man. If you were standing there watching your surrogate father die like that right in your arms, you would look like you would look like a mess too. You know.
Yes, definitely.
Well, we are almost an hour, and is there any? Do you want to split this into two parts, or do we want to just leave it here?
Yeah, we can split it into two parts. I actually only have two more questions out of all 54.
You had 54 questions for this. Wow. You know what? Okay, then let's go ahead and cap off. Let's do the other two questions. Then we'll just make this one video. How about that?
All right. Um, so where does this trilogy rank on your favorite trilogies of all time?
Ooh, that's tough. I think it would be Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy, the Indiana Jones trilogy, and
Oh,
and then
definitely the Indiana Jones trilogy is better than Spider-Man, but I like Spider-Man more than Indiana Jones.
Spider-Man. And then under, I know this may sound controversial, but then under that would be the Dark Knight trilogy.
Definitely for me, Spider-Man has the most impact in any trilogy I've ever seen. But if I were to rank it of what I think's better, number one, mine would be Dark Knight. Number two, Star Wars, and number three, Spider-Man.
Okay. And then if I were to go further with that, 4 would be Lord of the Rings, and then 5 would be Back to the Future.
My fourth would have to be Rocky. And then my fifth, no. My fourth would have to be definitely Jason Bourne. And then my fifth being Rocky. My sixth being Indiana Jones.
Yeah. I think
I forgot Scream, my bad.
You're fine. And then I think my sixth favorite trilogy, I had a trilogy in mind. What was it? Oh, Evil Dead. Evil Dead.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. That definitely makes my top 7.
It's within your
It's
top.
not a trilogy, so.
Yeah. So definitely within your top 10 trilogies. How about that?
Yeah.
That definitely.
This is actually a random question. It's not my last question. Did Aunt May know he was Spider-Man?
I like to believe she did. I mean, the fact that she always kind of knows exactly what to say at the right time, especially in Spider-Man 2.
Always.
Yeah, like whenever she gives that whole speech about what it means to be a hero during the garage sale, or in Spider-Man 3, whenever she gives that whole speech about how revenge is like a poison and all of that. I mean, there's no way she doesn't know. There's no way she doesn't know.
All right, I just want to get your opinion on that.
What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said.
Okay, cool.
You ready for my closing question? Do you have any closing statements before I ask this very important question?
No, I do not.
All right, this is going to blow your mind. What would a Kubrick Spider-Man movie have been like? Kubrick, week 4.
I don't think he's a good fit for Spider-Man.
Yeah, definitely not. That was a random question. We would have seen some psychotic Spider-Man in Spider-Man 3 if he made it.
I feel like he would have done really well with the Green Goblin insanity.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But I can't see him portraying the heroic Spider-Man
I
well.
think I think he could have done a good job, but not for the real Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I really
Oh,
would have loved to see what Joss Whedon would have done with a Spider-Man movie.
yeah. But in the end, Raimi made it, and we have to be glad that Tobey Maguire ended up being in all three movies.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that concludes today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Uh, I don't know what we're going to talk about next. I think we might shoot for a Let's Talk Directors next week.
Okay. All right.
Because we've only done one of those, and I think it'd be a good idea. So
I'm gonna have a lot to talk to about. I'm gonna have a lot to talk about if we talk about Nolan.
okay, yeah, okay. Well, I think that concludes today. Then I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for watching.
Adios.